You didn't ask, but we're going to be reviewing Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Thought it was a great movie. I'm Jory.
I'm Spencer.
I'm Amos.
I'm Tyler.
All right, so we're going to do a quick spoiler-free review. I thought this was a really great horror movie. It was cool to see a horror movie set in the Jim Crow South. I love the music in this movie. And we got some really great, first-time major motion movie picture performances by some of these actors.
Yeah.
Spencer, what about you?
Yeah, I thought it was a great movie. I thought the characters and the character development was really good in the movie. I thought it was well paced too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this, for me, might be my favorite vampire movie that I can think of. I think the pacing was great, even though it's like a really differently paced movie than what I was expecting. I think the action was great. I think the story was great. I think the metaphors were great. The music was hype.
Phenomenal.
So good.
Yeah, they did a great job with that.
And seeing this in theater was a 10 out of 10 experience.
It definitely added something to it. Like we were talking before about whether or not we would want to go to the movies for certain kind of films. And I think this is definitely one that you want to see in theaters.
This one is definitely one. And I think there's a couple things I don't think are perfect with it, but I really liked it. And we'll get more into that when we get into spoilers.
Amos?
I totally agree with what you guys were saying before. Like, this was just like a phenomenal experience just to go into theaters. Like, to be honest, I haven't gone to see that many movies in theaters, like within 2025, 2024. Of all the movies I had gone to see, Sinners, like by far, just gave me way more of like an experience to watch a movie. Like, compared to like, I don't know, say like Marvel's Avengers, it seemed like, no, what was that last Iron Captain America movie that came out?
Yeah.
The work they put into this Sinners movie eclipsed that movie so phenomenal. Like, out of any 2025 movie we could have seen, like, Sinners is the movie in my opinion.
This is an original idea. This is like one of the first really big movies that's like a completely original idea. And I think going to the theaters, like Amos is saying, to see this is like a really cool experience.
All right. Out of 10, guys, how do you rate this? For myself, I said it's somewhere in the range between 7.4 and 7.5. I think what you said, Tyler, about the originality of this movie definitely gives it a boost. I said I love the music. I'm curious to get your thoughts on something, but I'll ask that a little bit later. Spencer, out of 10, what would
interesting.
you say?
Maybe it's because I just watched it last night, but I got it a lot higher.
Okay.
I got it at like a 9.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Spencer here. I'm going to give this thing like a 9 right now. It could drop down to an 8.5 after the hype kind of dies away, but I think like a 9 right now. Like, yeah, it's awesome.
I agree with Tyler and Spencer. Like, off of the first impression, first time seeing this movie, like 9 out of 10. The sheer creativeness, like all the different emotions that were evoked through this movie, like 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I think the thing about this movie that really pushes that up for me is the fact that this is completely original. And I could be completely wrong. As we've seen through these other podcasts, I could be completely lying with what I'm about to say. But I keep seeing people talk about the fact that he pitched this to Marvel as a Blade prequel, and they turned it down. And
I think you're right. I think I did see somewhere that Ryan Coogler, who again directed this movie, said that his favorite vampire, like, I guess, series, movie, whatever you want to call it, was Blade. So that does make a lot of sense.
I mean, that's so awesome. The fact that like Marvel would have been an IP and probably would have been dumbed down and watered down to fit the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
Has now become
for
this
sure.
really interesting and unique movie that I don't really think anyone else could have made.
Yeah, I think the originality of it really added something too. Because trying to fit into that Marvel mold, like you're saying, it would have probably changed a lot of the character development and the way that they went with the movie.
Yeah, he would have had too many limitations if he kept this under Marvel's umbrella.
All right. Well, I feel like we should get into some spoilers.
I'm ready to spoil some stuff.
All right. So
we have to
at this point, if you haven't seen the movie, click off right now. We are going to start spoiling parts of the movie.
Or stay on if you're about that life.
Unless you just don't really want to go see it.
Which you definitely should be seeing this movie.
But I'm curious because you guys all rated this pretty highly. I feel like my one critique with the movie, and I feel like I get this a lot with movies that are kind of period pieces where they take place in a certain period in time in history, is I felt like at times there were lines or maybe dialects from the characters that took me out of that period. Right, this is set in the Jim Crow South and Mississippi in the 1930s. I felt like there were some dialogue that felt really modern, and I understand that. And I know there's a great scene in this movie where Sammy starts playing his music and it kind of transcends time.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, that's a great scene. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later. But so I understand that you can kind of blend language a little bit. But for me, I just felt like that kind of took me out of the movie at times where I was like, I feel like I'm watching this, but they're kind of speaking like 2025 language.
I kind of think the reason he probably did that is because if we were 1000% back then, I don't think a lot of people would be as engrossed in it. You have to kind of have some of those more modern feels to it because we are modern.
Yeah.
So if they're talking in a dialect with all the terms that they used back then, I guarantee you 90% of the people probably wouldn't even understand what they were saying. There was a couple of times where they were talking in their dialect and I had to think, what did they say?
Yeah. Like imagine how much 1930s slang you would understand.
You're definitely right. But I don't know. It's just like, to me, I just felt like I couldn't cite a perfect example, but I feel like there were times where I'm like, I feel like they could have even just written this a little bit differently. But I don't know. I don't want to make a
terrible take.
I don't want to make it seem like this is terrible.
The guy said
it does sound like
I feel like that type of take is for someone who was like born in like 19.
Old head take. I'm an old head.
Born around Mississippi and was like looking for specific dialect in the movie.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But
I think you kind of have to push that in a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we mentioned it. Let's talk about that scene. Like we said, so they're in the club juke. Sammy, and it's I guess brought up earlier. His father is a pastor, and he talks about his ability to play music can basically summon future, past, present, whatever. And so he finally gets a chance to perform in front of the crowd, and it's just this incredible transition where you see modern music. We see like the 80s like hip hop people. We see a girl like twerking in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a really cool scene. Honestly, I loved it. And the music was all blended together. So it was just like this great fusion of, old and new. So
I think that scene, it's a one take two. So it's a oneer as they call it. I think that scene might go down as one of the best scenes in recent movie history. It is so well made. The symbolism behind it is amazing. The creativity behind it is amazing. I mean, that scene, I remember when that started happening, I turned to
that
Spencer and I was like,
alone is like one of the reasons you should go see this movie in theaters. Because
the audio presentation in that moment was absolutely incredible.
Absolutely.
Like you're hearing sounds from so many different eras of music
scene like in the theater.
It really does boost it up.
Dude, and Sammy was so great. And this is kind of going off topic, but we got to bring it up. The actor for Sammy, this is his first movie ever.
That's what I was
never acted in anything before.
That's what I was trying to explain earlier. Miles
like a seasoned vet out there.
So he was like a music background though. Like he obviously made music or something like that.
But if you look him up on like IMDb or just in like Google searches, like Sinners is his only
movie credit.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
He was
incredible.
So good. Mostly in that scene, his voice was so powerful.
I know, right? No, he definitely had a handful of great performances and really drove this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the whole cast was really good. I really like Delroy Lindo's character, Delta Slim, who's kind of like I think he's introduced as this like old kind of drunkard person who, might not be able to add a lot to the story. Someone who, maybe you could look at it as like, oh, he might die early on because he's just not, maybe all there or whatnot. But I felt like he really brought a wisdom to the film. There was like the scene where they're all driving in the car. He's talking about lynchings that have been happening in the past. So I just feel like he brought a lot of really great, like just life experiences to this movie. Obviously a great actor. But Yeah, I mean, I thought the whole cast was fantastic.
With him being like an older actor, you would think sometimes he might just throw in the towel just to get the check. Dude,
Yeah.
he put his whole heart into this movie.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he did a phenomenal
He
job.
went all.
What did you guys think of Michael B. Jordan playing both Smoke and Stack? Because in the movie, they're twin brothers. I think maybe, you probably could have had a different actor play a brother, but I thought Michael B. Jordan did a fantastic job kind of differentiating the two characters. But what did you guys
Yeah,
think?
there was like a clear distinction between the two of them, and he managed to encapsulate that like pretty well. I was very impressed with how he handled it.
I was a little curious how they were going to do it. Like having both of them on the screen so much at the same time. But you really could feel a difference between like Smoke and Stack.
Dude,
And over the course of the movie, especially as they become like vampires and you're seeing even more different aspects of them, I thought you did a great job.
I think Michael B. Jordan in Sinners deserves an main actor nomination and a supporting actor
Yeah.
nomination.
Maybe.
Like he was so good. And like I forgot halfway through the movie that it's him playing both. Like that's how good he was. And they look exactly the same. You think you would just be like, oh, there's Michael B. Jordan. No, like that was Stack and Smoke.
I don't even know, like you would probably have to explain this. Would it have been possible to like change his appearance? Maybe like, I was thinking like he could just change his facial hair, maybe
Yeah,
to
well,
differentiate like
they-
how he did.
Yeah, they definitely could. I was actually watching a video where they explained how they did it. And there's a couple of ways that this happens in Hollywood. And it's very convoluted because what they probably did, and what if I'm remembering correctly, they filmed, I forget what the actual technology is, but it's a crane that can get the exact camera movement the exact same time because you can't have user error. It has to be the exact same. And then they film him with a stunt double, him as Stack and a stunt double for Smoke. Smoke, right?
Yeah.
And then the opposite, he'll film for the other one, and then they'll digitally composite his face onto it.
So
taking
do they
it from-
film each thing twice then?
Yeah, probably.
Each of those scenes twice?
I feel like I heard something that like they filmed like the scene where he like passes the cigarette to his brother in the beginning. They filmed that like a ton of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
that's
bet.
Probably.
You gotta do like how many takes for each individual character, and you have to get it exactly right.
Wow.
Like a huge undertaking that they didn't have to do. And some people might say like, oh, it was cheap because you just want Michael B. Jordan in it. But I almost think it was better that way.
And I think where they placed it, like right at the start of the movie, having them do that kind of makes you feel like they're both two different characters.
100%. Or
I thought the color grading on Smoke and Stack was cool too.
Yeah,
You could always tell the difference between like the red and the blue. And I think it symbolized like different parts of their personality too.
couldn't have said it better because Smoke and Stack were different in the ways that their emotions were. One was a lot more aggressive, and
Right.
I which one was that? That was Smoke, I think.
Smoke was the one in blue. Stack was the one in red.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Stack is the one who turned into.
Yeah, Stack was
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you think about it, Stack is the aggressive one, the
the more
one who-
hot-headed one.
the more hot-headed one. The one Stack is the one who sins.
Mm.
Yeah.
He Stack has
Yep. he
sex with someone who's married. That's a sin. And what happens to people who sin?
There were so many like sinful undertones in the movie, but one I want to talk about is Haley Steinfeld's character.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Mary.
Mary. Like when they were talking about going outside to get the money, like that was greed.
Yeah.
Because if they had chilled out and she didn't go out there,
Yeah, they
none
wouldn't
of that
have-
would have happened.
Mm.
There's
And
so
I didn't
many.
even make those. I didn't even think to make those connections while I was watching this movie. I was just too
Yeah.
engrossed in
Yeah.
everything else.
Or even with like Delta Slim, like when they first meet him, he was talking about how he didn't want to go take that job because he had a more stable job.
Why did he
but
go?
they convinced him
With
with
money.
alcohol.
Exactly. Money and alcohol.
Mhm. And he was like, this is something I've never tried
If
before.
you were movies like Friday the 13th and stuff, the kids would always sin. They would have sex, and then they're dying because they sinned. They sinned on camera basically, and they're gonna get chopped up into 1,000 pieces.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, like so many people were sinning in here that started dying off. Why did Sammy? Because he sinned. He had sex with a married woman.
Mm.
No, he
Or he had.
Oh wait, yeah, he did.
I don't know. Maybe he just comes from a higher power. Maybe his father is protecting him in some way as a pastor.
It's
I
the
don't know.
music. Maybe it's
The
the
music.
But there was
I don't
also
know.
the idea that the devil knows more of the word of God than even you do. And they encapsulated that scene when he was in the river and that vampire was like,
like
about
reverse
to kill him.
baptizing him.
Mm.
yeah, was baptizing
Yeah,
him.
that's a good.
I
There's
think
so
the whole
many, like,
movie had like like undertones about like not inviting in sin and keeping it out, because most of these people, as soon as they started letting the sin even a little bit get close to them, it completely ruined everything in their lives.
Yeah. That is such an interesting thing about vampires, that vampires are a very sexual fantasy creature. They suck your blood, and a lot of newer adaptations, they're like humping you basically as they suck your blood, and then you become part of them and stuff. And there's a very sexual nature to it. And one of the main things about vampires is you have to let them in. So what do they represent? They represent consent. They represent sexual desires. They represent sin, with the fact that not everyone is born evil. You have to let evil into your heart, into your brain, into your mind, in order to it actually affect you. If you just let it, like, dude, if they just stay in the house, they'd all be alive. If they just did not say come in, like, they would all be.
It was interesting too, because they let you know in advance that certain sins are going to end badly. Like when they first open up the blanket on the back of the truck, you see the snake where the beers are at, and they have to kill it. And that should have been a sign to like leave it alone.
Snakes are always devil animal type thing.
Yeah, kept going.
I mean, I think that's why, you guys are kind of raising this rating for me already as we're just talking about it. But I think there's just so much symbolism in this movie that it's incredible. But I mean, you guys mentioned Haley Steinfeld. Would you risk it all?
You get it, press the button.
I mean, I don't know. Stack, you got caught lacking, I guess. I don't know.
He did.
But they seem to win out in the end. Like, they got immortality. The two of them are just like chilling it at night. You know? It's kind of a win, also a loss, but kind of a win.
You just get Haley Steinfeld for eternity. Eternity. Yeah, I mean,
it's not that bad.
You know what? I would walk out of that house. You know what? Maybe you gotta come in.
Temptation, man. Temptation.
I mean, I think the Mary character is, again, that sin. She's like a walking sin, but like not on purpose, because she actually does love Stack and stuff. But I think that it's that sinful temptation and whatnot that she falls into it. Is it because of her own sin though, or is it because of his? Because she's trying to help him out in order to gain his love, or not his love, to gain him to say, let's be together, which is a whole nother topic of why he didn't want to be with her. Dude,
he said that he didn't want to put her in danger and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I love that one scene between those two.
So deep, because she's like 13% black. Yeah. And he knows that she's white passing.
Right.
And so if she is to marry him, date him, whatever, she's put on a list for basically like all the white supremacists and the KKK to attack now. And he's like, I can't do that to you.
That's why I love this movie. I think that's why I think I brought up the language thing a little bit earlier, but it's just, I felt like in so many other aspects, this movie was like historically accurate because, like you said, Tyler, like white passing was like such a huge deal. There were, I think colorism and like racism obviously is, was a huge part of this time in history, but colorism as well, like, who, where you came from essentially, or who your parents was, your ancestry. It was very important back then. And I think another scene that I really loved also happened in the Juke when they first opened up, and he might have just been like an extra character trying to buy alcohol, and he puts down, actual currency and then like some other coins, and Smoke sees that. And it's like, we're not a charity. This is not, we're like, we want US American dollars for our goods here. And he's told by his wife, Annie, I think her name was, and Stack as well. It's like, you have to understand that this was a place for, black people to unwind and get away from the realities of life. You don't know how hard he worked for those 2 coins, right? And like, we have to be able to accept people here. And I feel like that's why, and I don't know, Club Juke just kind of felt like a holy place in terms of that. You know what I mean? Like,
I was literally going to bring something up, but you just basically brought it all together. One of the things I loved about this was the community feel that Club Juke had. And the scene that I was thinking about is when Mary, they open the door and they're talking to the vampires, and they're like, well, why is she in there? And they're like, she's family. They're like protective of her, even though she doesn't fit in. She's the only white girl in there, or white passing. There's another group of beings in this movie that have a very similar culture community
Yeah.
has that, and that is the vampires. And I think that's kind of why they were so tempting. He's like, we're all going to be family together, and Remick, the main vampire, has such an interesting backstory, which I think I have a couple of extra tidbits you guys will like to hear about him.
I also wanted to like talk more about like
The vampire,
the vampires, and then just their design in general. I loved how like the whole like when they turn into a vampire, they're not really like they're still an individual, but they become a part of like this like vampire hive mind. Like all their memories are shared. They feel the same pain. I thought that was like such a unique concept for vampires to have.
Like the vampires were so cool. Also, I love the fact that there's no big transformation. It's just like slowly, like all of a sudden you'll see their eyes, which were so cool. I like the fact that it wasn't just like glowing red eyes. It was like these
just
like
red
white,
sometimes when they were trying to tempt
like
you.
These, you know when you see like an animal out in the forest and it's just like you're like flashlight like flashes on their eyes and get like a little sparkle, like it's that, which is that animalistic feel to these vampires. And then as the whole ending scene is happening, he's becoming more and more grotesque and monster. He's got these long fingers with these fingernails. He's got gigantic teeth. He's becoming what you would think of a normal vampire, but Ryan Coogler doesn't focus in on it. It's just there. It's happening as you're going. And I thought that was so cool. Instead of a big transformation scene and wings coming out of him and stuff,
Yeah, no. And they didn't really showcase like having supernatural abilities a lot. I mean, obviously they're vampires, but like, I think the only time where we saw Remick, like at the end where he like jumps on Sammy and he's kind of like flying through the air. I feel
there's like
He also flies when he goes to take Mary, like when she goes to walk back in the inside the juke joint. You see him fly up a little bit, and then next thing you know, she's at the door and she's walking back in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but Remick is the only one we ever see have that. No other vampire does that. So I wonder if that's because he's kind of the main hive mind. If maybe he gets those special powers, or if that was just how the movie portrayed him.
I do wonder too, like where the Native Americans were in.
I was just about to mention that. Like,
we see them hunting Remick originally,
and they just like.
Well, no, they said, watch out. If that guy's
like they saw the sun going down. They're like, we gotta get out of here, guys.
It's like, we don't want to be here anymore. So it would have been interesting to see how they would have navigated, I guess, protecting themselves from the zombies.
I thought they were going to come in at the
vampires.
I thought the Native Americans were going to come in at the end and save them. I'm happy they didn't.
Yeah.
But like, I kind of want to know, why were they hunting Remick? Because it was like the sun was setting. So why was Remick out in the sun at that point? How did they capture him? Like, I kind of like it's world building, because there's like, it makes you feel like this world was alive before the movie started.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Remick in Sinners might be one of the best villains that I've seen in recent movie history. There's so much nuances to him that you don't realize. When he goes up to that house, he is talking to the KKK family, whatever. And he is calling the Native Americans by their real name. And he's talking about them and whatnot. And he's not really being totally racist to them or anything like that. And then he peers in and he sees the KKK thing in there.
Yeah.
He immediately switches his tone and his vocabulary to now be racist, to now be a KKK person, because he needs to be led into this house. And now
a very manipulative, persuasive type of villain that is just like
so he changes
much more lecherous and way more like just instigative, gets his plans the way he wants it to go.
Exactly. So I think one of the great things about Remick is that he's Irish. And in the history of Ireland, I guess, Irish people, I'm probably getting this wrong because I'm not a historian, but they were also persecuted and forced into certain religions, which is why at the end he says like, oh, they forced that religion on you. They forced it on my people too. So he's coming from a place to this black community as someone who was oppressed, but now he's become the oppressor, and he kind of has that feeling of like, oh, let's become community, let's become family.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it. Definitely. I mean, I just feel like there's such an interesting blend of like good and evil, because there's, like Smoke and Stack are criminals themselves. Like they went up to Chicago. I think they mentioned at one point that they were working for Al Capone.
They worked for Al Capone,
So like, I mean, it's just so interesting that, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like an anti-hero versus an antagonist, you know?
Who's the real villain? Who is the real villain in Sinners?
Maybe the real villain is just religion itself and the idea that you have to kind of, you know, there's like ideas of what sin is and what it isn't.
Okay.
Good and evil. I don't know. Just like that. Yeah.
Spencer,
That's
what do you
interesting.
think?
That's along the lines of what I was thinking of. I feel like the enemy is sin itself. Like nobody in the movie is completely perfect. Everybody's flawed. Everybody is shown sinning in some way, shape, or form. But some people let it consume them in the movie, and then some people don't.
Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Father of love, King of all kings. You would say, yeah, it's like the vampires. But in terms of like a villain, like the vampires have their own goal. The KKK has their own goal, and then Smokestack have their own goal. Like it's kind of just like a large conflict of multiple parties, each vying for to gain some type.
Really,
of
just more power.
I would think the main villain in Sinners is what we talked about. I don't know if it's religion, maybe it's sin, but I think it's also just trying to conform people to what they aren't. But then I'd also say the KKK.
Yeah.
They're just pure evil. I mean, if we're gonna really talk about it, I think they're more of the monsters than the actual vampires.
Yeah. I mean, what did you guys make of that last scene where I think it's Smoke, you know, gunning down the KKK essentially?
If it wasn't for the vampires, he wouldn't have known that they were coming.
That's true. He wouldn't have had that opportunity.
There's a humanity part to Ramek that probably sympathizes with them. And in his mind, this is the best way to get a community that can't die, won't look bad on each other, won't look down on each other. This is the way.
So do you think that's why he was going so hard to bring everyone together to try to save them? But then at the end of credit scene that we see, they don't try to eat Preacher Boy.
Yeah. Ramek is just such a great villain. There's more I talk about him. Because dude, like, oh my God, I just thought of another thing. What was his motive? Ramek's motive in it was that he
really wanted to bring everyone together.
He wanted to bring everyone together, and he wanted Sammy because he wanted Sammy's ability to play the music so he could see his ancestors, his family that he probably hasn't seen in hundreds of years because they were killed, and he lives. He just wants to see his family, his ancestors.
So yeah, back to all those different motivations. So like, what if Ramek was actually the protagonist?
Yeah. I thought, I mean, it's kind of in line, but I thought my favorite song of the movie came from Ramek or Jack O'Connell's character. It was also the man and the woman. They were kind of sitting outside the juke, and this is when Haley Steinfeld's character approaches, and they start singing. It's "Will Ye Go, Lassie?" I think that's the name of the song, which I thought was really symbolic because it's kind of them, like we were talking about, like inviting her to come join us into this, like, you know, like shared mind hive, like you're saying, like this vampiric, you know. Yeah. I don't know if you want to call it a disease, but I just thought that was my favorite song. Probably my favorite like music scene outside of obviously like the transition scene with Sammy.
I wanted to talk about
wave song at the end.
I don't know if I was.
I wanted to talk about Annie's character too. Yeah. I felt like she was a really cool portrayal because she knew so much about what was going on. And without her and her knowledge, so many more people probably would have been in danger.
It's really interesting that in current times in horror movies that are supernatural, it has changed from the priest or pastor that knows everything about these to the, what would she be called? The shaman or whatever,
the Bayou witch doctor.
Yeah, the witch doctor. The witch.
It talked about the like protection that she was putting over him and helping him with, and he was saying that he didn't know whether or not it was working, but it was the last thing that kept him protected when Stack tried to bite his neck.
And guess what? When did he take it off? When did he take off his protection?
After he was ready to die.
Right when he was ready to face the KKK, because he was ready to die and see his
wife and child.
So he took it off, and then he died.
Yep.
Dude, I'm getting chills thinking about this movie. Oh my God. It's a movie.
Yeah. No,
he was great.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
This is a good movie.
So many
whole lot of layers.
We were saying after we watched it that there's probably so many symbolisms and just like allegories that word didn't understand, but the more you talk about it, the more you realize. Oh my God, dude.
I see why people keep going back to see this movie.
Yeah.
What about that spit scene?
Oh, whoa.
You know, we
Honestly,
have to
I'd
bring
go
that
back
up.
just
That's why I said, would you risk it all? I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, honestly,
was a
probably wouldn't have
lot of
noticed
spit
when that lady was.
I mean, really quick, I also want to talk about the pacing of this movie, because the first half of this movie, while we were watching, I was like, okay, I really like this. It's a good character build up, but there's like no vampire build up, nothing. The first half of this movie is just purely world and character building. And do you think that worked, or do you think we should have had more vampire stuff throughout the entire first half?
I think
it worked.
That worked in a sense that when the vampires came in, it shifts the tone so drastically, and it makes it way more intense. And even what would be really good, like if you don't like spoilers, if you came into this movie not even knowing, like I feel like you could watch this movie having no idea that vampires were in this shit. And you would shit your pants watching it. All of a sudden, you're like, "Whoa! I just thought this was Jim Crow. What the fuck?"
Yeah.
I mean, when the trailer first came out, I remember we saw it in theaters and it didn't show the vampire, the first teaser trailer. And I thought it was just like a Jim Crow, KKK 1930s, like action thriller.
No, that's why
I think the character development was really essential for the second half of the movie, to care about what was going on with the
100%.
characters.
Yeah.
And I think had they rushed and showed the vampires too early, like a lot of horror movies, you would have just been like, well, cannon fodder, like just get rid of them.
Yeah.
But you really felt connected to the characters from the what you
and
saw.
the characters that were cannon fodder, and that was okay because we weren't connected to them. But the characters that we were connected to, we actually felt a connection to, and we're like rooting for them.
But I've seen a lot of people classify this as a musical. Do you think Sinners is a musical? I don't personally think it is, but
No, I wouldn't say it's a musical.
Well,
Just
what's
because
they break out into song obviously quite often, but I don't know if I really classify this as a musical.
I feel like in a musical, you're singing your way through the whole plot, or a lot more of the plot than we saw. In Sinners, there were definitely song elements that were like crucial to the plot and stuff, but it wasn't all song, especially once they got inside the juke joint. Like that part could have literally just been songs from start to finish, but there were a lot of like side conversations where it wasn't really as songy.
I would consider a musical. I'd say that they were singing in a movie.
Yeah.
I feel like for something to be a musical, you have to stop your forward progression of plot to sing your fuck ass ditty.
I was gonna say, I feel like a musical,
to sing.
I feel like a musical, you kind of take yourself out of reality. You don't always have to, but it takes yourself out of reality for a musical number. While this one was a movie about music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
whatnot. I mean, if you came to me and was like, this is a musical horror, I wouldn't be like,
You're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't-
but I would be like, I don't know if I completely agree. But it doesn't really matter. Whatever drives people to go to the theaters to see this is good with me.
Yeah, just go watch it.
Yeah.
You guys think he could make a sequel / prequel to this movie?
I think he could, but I don't think
he could be
he
set in the
should.
same universe, but I don't think he could use the same characters. Like maybe you could show what Stack and Mary were doing, like in that period between the 60s and 90s at the end of the movie. But I don't think a movie about the same characters would be that good.
I think kind of what you said, he can, and to be honest, he probably will with how much money this is going to I can understand where you can come from, because there's a couple different places you can go for. You can do a Ramek origin story. How did he become a vampire? How did he come over? Which, real quick, if you go onto like the Spotify page, I think for this movie and the album, which the guy who composed the score for this, his name is Ludwig something. I don't want to mispronounce it. I'll put it on the screen. This guy is on a fast track to becoming one of the best music composers. Do you know what else he composed?
I feel like I know, but
Oppenheimer.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say Oppenheimer.
I was listening to it earlier today, and I was getting hyped. I was like, dude, I want to go write a story. I want to go direct something. Like, this guy's music is insane.
I feel like he just really great tone setting for this movie and Oppenheimer as well. But
so if you go to the Spotify page, I'm not a stupid Spotify user. I'm an Apple Music user. But,
use that over here.
I guess you can go to like an info page or something, and they have fake newspaper article clips from the movie. But it also talks about the fact that a think it was a boat in the 1920s, whatever. So probably 10 years before this movie takes place, a boat that crashed in somewhere from Ireland, I think they said, and no one was left alive on board, only blood and one person they saw burning alive as they ran off the boat or something. And that's how Ramick came to the States and everything like that. And that's awesome because that is how Dracula and Nosferatu, that's how they come over. They come out on a boat and that crashes onto whatever place they're going to now terrorize. And it's so cool that that's that little world building that's not even in the movie.
Yeah.
But it just gives him and that character in this world so much more world building. And so that's where I could see them going into a backstory prequel on him. They could do one on Smoke and Stack. They could do a sequel on.
It could cover the Native Americans and how they hunt vampires.
I see people like
That's what I was
prequel for
thinking.
them hunting Ramick.
Like, that'd be cool.
But at the same time,
let's
just keep it.
I know.
on. Let's just keep it on. Keep
We
one.
should really keep this as a one-off.
I kind of just feel like it
Like,
takes
this movie
away
was
from the
excellent.
movie.
100%.
Try and do too much with it, but I liked it, and I think I might boost my rating up to about like an 8.
Hey,
I think it started at 7.5. Now I'm at like an 8.
Nah,
just
give
based on
it
talking.
a.
I don't know if I can go to.
give it
I
an
don't know if
8.5.
I can
Give it an
go to
8.5.
9.
I mean,
I
gotta be the worst take I've heard. This guy,
Right.
we've been glazing this movie this entire time. Then he gives it a 7.5. Like, I haven't heard a worse take.
No. We're good.
I have a couple things that bothered me or were brought down. First of all, I do think there's a little bit of plot armor. There's a couple moments where like a vampire's about to like bite the face off of like one of our main characters and they just don't. Ramick at the end. And I really think it was a great moment where Ramick and Sammy are in the water and he kind of, because I think he's also like very cocky because he's like, I have you. Like, there's no way I'm not going to turn you into a vampire.
Yeah, he was saying.
But it's like, you know, he starts praying and then Ramick starts praying and he's like, oh, they forced that religion on you. They forced it on my people too. So they had that
And
connection.
he
But at the same
quotes the
time,
words, and he's like, those words bring me comfort too.
so it's like you could have just bit him, turned him into a vampire, and then said that. I don't think Smoke should have killed Ramick. He came out of nowhere. Why did none of the vampires see him running out of the building and into the water? Why did they stop him? How did he sneak up on there? I know I'm looking too much into it, but the reason is because I'd rather Sammy kill him with the guitar that he had.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's what I thought he was going to do. Like the whole time from the very first scene of the movie, he had that busted up guitar and it was all covered in blood. I was like, oh, he's gonna kill Ramick with his guitar in this scene. And then that didn't happen. And I was like,
Maybe it was like a throw off though.
It
Like
could
when
have
he
been a
walks
throw-off.
in the first scene and he's holding the broken guitar in.
Yeah.
You're gonna think that's the stake that he used.
Yeah. For me, it was also just like, I was like, it's one of those moments where it's like, dude, you just ran past 30 vampires. How do they not
Nobody's-
destroy you on your way out?
well, he did have that charm that like protected him from.
Okay. Yeah. You know, you are
So
right.
that could be a justifiable reason why none of the other vampires got to him.
Maybe they were just blinded by Michael B. Jordan's handsomeness.
Yeah.
And they just didn't even.
Yeah.
I think the movie tries to play it off because he was stabbed in the head, so they're all like, because they're all feeling his pain, and that's why they didn't notice him. But the way that it was played off in the movie was that he just like, surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, they were in the water. Like, couldn't you hear him splashing around?
Yeah. It's like smashing. Like, how do you
Like,
Zero awareness.
Yeah.
Not an easy.
He was
thing
too
to-
locked in.
I guess here's the way to put it. We knew Sammy was going to survive. How did you feel about
Yeah.
them showing the ending of the movie in the beginning? Did you not like that? Did it destroy the thrill for you because you knew Sammy was going to survive, or was it more of finding out how he got to that point?
I mean,
I think when you watch it the first time and you see like the scratches on him, you don't know what he went through to bring him to that point. So once you're in that moment, you don't know how many people are going to make it out of it.
Yeah.
And I think not knowing about everybody else was enough to keep you in the scene without just knowing about, oh, is Preacher Boy going to make
Well,
it?
I think also like what I think Amos mentioned, like, you know, going into this movie blindly, you really could have thought anything. Like you could have thought, you know, maybe he just got roughed up because he's going to go with his cousins who are also criminals. His father warned him not to hang out with these two people, you know. You could think maybe it was the KKK that got to him or something like that. Like anything, you could have had any idea of what could happen. So I didn't mind, you know, starting the movie that way.
I think putting that scene in the beginning just built this huge sense of anticipation.
Yeah.
Like kind of what Spencer was getting at earlier. Like it really, like you're just the whole time you're wondering, okay, how are we going to get from here to there? Where everyone's nice, everyone's jolly. How are we going to get from here where this guy's coming home covered in slashes and all this shit? And then at the same time, you almost didn't even need that scene. Like the movie would have progressed the same if you didn't have that anticipation. And
that's what I'm wondering is what was on that.
Wait, speaking about religion, at the beginning of the movie, they talk about how like Corinthians 10:13, like you'll never be put through anything you can't bear, basically. And then we see the Chinese woman, I can't think of her name right now.
Grace, I think it was.
Grace. And when they know that her husband is out there and he's trying to convince her with the kid, she's ultimately the one that brings everybody inside and allows them to come in. Do you think she was going through something that was too much for her to bear? Or do you think she just had like a mental break?
I don't.
I'd say it was too much for her to handle. And then when she let everybody in, she just went and killed herself to kill her husband because she was just like, I can't.
Yeah, I think at that point, she wasn't thinking about anyone but her own family. And she was sinful in that way. She didn't care about any of her neighbors, just about herself.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, so we went to the theater with one of our friends.
Oh, goodness.
And Justin decides that he has to pee really bad at the ending of this movie. And so he tells me, I got to pee. I'm like, you should not pee right now. Like, stuff is about to get so hype. And so the vampires are surrounding the entire house. And this is before Grace lets them in. And they're all debating how they're going to attack. And Justin looks at me, he's like, I got to go pee. I'm going right now. It seems like a slow moment. He leaves. And within 30 seconds, he comes back. Grace is on fire. The whole place is on fire. Like, people are dead. Yeah. Half the cast is dead. Vampires are in. Tommy gun everywhere. Like battling, like Michael B. Jordan battling Michael B. Jordan. And he's like, what the fuck happened? And I was like, dude, I told you not to go to the
left at literally the climax of the movie.
This seems like a slow moment. Yeah. Okay.
Needless to say, that guy does not know film.
I was like, we are there in the climax of the movie. This is not the moment to go pee.
Oh, hey, that's why you don't get soda at the movie theaters, guys.
Last thing I want to bring up that we haven't really talked about too much is the after credit scenes and what that has to do for the movie. The first one is Sammy when he's older now. He has obviously not taken his father's advice and followed the way of music. People were saying he sold his soul to become a really big artist. People have said that you can't see his reflection in the mirror. So he's a vampire. And I'm like, no, it's just a camera angle probably. If he was a vampire, Michael B. Jordan's character and Haley Steinfeld would not be coming and trying to turn you into a vampire.
Yeah. He wouldn't be old.
He wouldn't be old. He wouldn't have aged. Did he sell his soul? That's a different question.
But it was interesting. I think it was cool that they showed him performing like as just a performer and not like a jukebox joint guy.
Yeah.
Like how Smoke and Stack were telling him they didn't want to see him do that as he got older. So he still found a way, to me at least, to follow his dream without putting himself in a dangerous position.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but I also loved when he's like, you know, before the sunset, this was like the best day of my life. And I don't know. I thought that was like a beautiful way to end this movie. Like that line itself, because it's right. Like, you know, he's, you know, with his cousins, he's playing music, you know, he's surrounded by family, like
community.
Community is a beautiful girl that he, but no, I just thought that was great. Yeah. And obviously like he gets to go to Chicago, which he talked about, you know, like wanting to be there. So I thought it was great.
I was just going to say, I really liked how, even though he still was connecting his whole family, all everybody he knew was gone, except for Stack, who is now a vampire. And in a way, he still has like a connection to his family because like Smoke and Stack made this agreement to not kill Sammy. So now he still gets, and then he's been like visiting him ever since. Yeah. And so I just really like that kind of warm connection they still had, even though he was like a blood-sucking vampire now.
Yeah. And I think perfect. I think it is, for me, the best vampire movie I've seen in a long time. I haven't gone through all the vampire catalogs, but seeing Nosferatu. Did you see Nosferatu?
I did. We saw it together.
Oh,
you don't even remember? Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
This movie puts Twilight in the
Yeah.
shit,
There's not a
or
lot of vampire
like
movies.
it.
to compare
It's
to.
it's the year of the vampire though.
Um,
It feels like.
yeah.
Like
So what would
Nosferatu in
you
this.
what would you say? What's better, Nosferatu or Sinners?
I feel like Sinners because it's more original, like we all talked
Yeah.
about. Like Nosferatu kind of has a base, but I mean Nosferatu was fantastic. I love that movie. So
Nosferatu was great. I prefer Sinners as a vampire movie, and I think this is just because of the story of Nosferatu is much more of a possession horror movie
yeah,
rather than as a
Yeah.
monster movie with like metaphor. And that's what when I go see a vampire movie, I'm personally want to see monster movie instead of possession horror movie. I think Sinners for me, and I love Robert Eggers. He's one of my favorite directors of current times, but I think Sinners beats it out.
Mm.
So what's your final new rating? for this movie.
I'm gonna rate Sinners an 8.1 out of 10. After
What
our
the-
conversation, I thought I definitely gave it a little bit of a boost, but
One boost.
I think like I said, I feel like I'm I'm a tough grader, man, but
This guy's.
I feel like I think you're underestimating what it is in my mind. I think the majority of like perfect, like I don't know, in my head, like a perfect movie wouldn't even be a 10. I don't even think a 10 is possible.
I'm gonna rate Sinners a 9 out of 10.
I'm gonna give Sinners a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Sinners a 9 out of 10. Ryan really cooged all over this.
Oh, he Googled the fuck up.
He absolutely cooged for sure.
Ryan cooged all over us this entire movie, and it was fantastic.
You didn't ask, but we just reviewed Sinners.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, and
See you in the next one.
leave a like.
Thanks for
subscribe,
tuning in.
Do all the stuffs, and yeah, peace.
Come back again.